Good morning and welcome to this week's Reset for Life moment. If you know me, you know that I like to do most things fast. I'm just naturally faster paced. So for example, when I get behind a driver on a 2-lane highway who's actually doing the speed limit, not the speed suggestion, I tend to get a lot impatient. I'm actually thinking to myself, this is so frustrating. This guy is actually slower than molasses in January. It's an old statement we used to say. He's slower than a 28K dial-up modem, for those of you who are old enough to remember that, what that means. You know, people who are slow moving drive me crazy, and I'm not alone. When you look around at our world, everything is faster than it has ever been. We want what we want, and we want it now. We don't want to have to wait for it. As a result, everything in our lives is faster, including ourselves. Here's a bit of proof. In 1855, the fastest time to run 1 mile was 4 minutes and 28 seconds. In 1945, the fastest time to run 1 mile was 4 minutes, 1.4 seconds. In 1999, the record that still stands today, a runner from Morocco set a world record of the 1 mile run in a time of 3 minutes, 43.13 seconds. That's a full 45 seconds faster than 150 years earlier. But is faster better, especially when it comes to God? This week, my When God theme centers around when God is slow. In case you hadn't noticed, God moves pretty slow, at least according to our standards. He doesn't answer prayers for healing right away. He doesn't give us direction in life right away. He doesn't reveal to us truth to our lives very quickly. Frankly, God doesn't move at our pace. He moves at the right pace. And the sooner that you and I learn to go at God's pace, the better life is going to be. Listen to what God had to say to the nation of Israel in Isaiah chapter 30, verses 15 to 16. He says these words, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. The Holy One of Israel says, only in returning to me and resting in me will you be saved. In quietness and in confidence is your strength." Did you hear those words? Returning to God will bring resting and quietness and confidence and strength. Doesn't your spirit just crave those things? Don't you just wish that you could get off this crazy, fast-paced world sometimes and find some peace by slowing things down? Well, you can, but only as you return to Christ. Unfortunately, though, we often want to run ahead of God, don't we? We want to try to tell God what to do. We want to tell Him when to turn left or right, when to brake in our lives. We say we don't want to be in control, but we reason that if God doesn't move as fast as we do, in fact, if He moves slow like He likes to, we wouldn't have to take over. We sound a lot like the people in the actual next verse of Isaiah chapter 30. Verse 16 says, "But you would have none of it. You said, 'No, we will get our help from Egypt. They will give us swift horses for riding into battle.'" Do you notice that word? But the only swiftness God says that you are going to see is the swiftness of your enemies chasing you. So God says, I'm not going to give you the fast-paced swift horses to ride into battle like you crave. Instead, the only swiftness you're going to see is the enemy coming after you. What this passage is really trying to teach us is to remind us to slow down, to take our time, to trust God. I think we need to remember 3 things when we're getting frustrated that God isn't moving fast enough for us. First of all, as I've already said, we need to remember to trust God. When we're feeling rushed and overwhelmed, trust Him. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is a great reminder for this. Trust isn't something, friends, that you're going to develop overnight, but each day you can find something that you can trust God about. Trust is a lot like a muscle, and the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. In case you need to be reminded, God is trustworthy. But you and I will actually never know that until we actually learn to trust Him. Second of all, we need to understand that God isn't subject to time like we are. 2 Peter 3 verse 8 says this, "With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day." When we think that we only have a day or two to get an answer, God sees life very differently. Remember, He created time. So when we say we've only got those few days to get that answer, He sees the situation different than we do, and He responds to it in His time and in His way. In John chapter 11, Jesus was told that His friend Lazarus was very sick. But Jesus was in no rush to go to Lazarus' house to heal him. By the time He did get there, Lazarus had already been dead for 4 days, been buried in the ground. It seems that Jesus' slow pace was too late for His friend. But God had other plans, didn't He? Jesus prayed for Lazarus, and Lazarus rose from the grave. Lazarus got new life, and God got the glory, even if he was late by our standards. Third, don't forget that God is already working on things behind the scenes, orchestrating our lives for His purposes. He's affecting things that we can't see and therefore we can't appreciate. He's maneuvering the chessboards of our lives, and He's making all things work together for the good of those who love God, according to Romans 8:28. This is why we need to trust Him and realize that He's not limited like we are. You know, when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of money as kids growing up, and some nights we'd actually gather around the kitchen table as a family, and we'd hold hands and we'd pray that God would provide food for our supper because we had nothing in the cupboards. As we were praying, a knock would often come to the door, and somebody from the church would drop off some food, maybe some chickens that they had just slaughtered. We live in a farming community, or maybe just a box of food. Here it is, friends. Even before we went to prayer, God had already been working behind the scenes and preparing an answer for our prayers. God wasn't slow, He was right on time. Here's a thought for you as we close. Is it really that God is too slow or that we are too fast? Is it that I am so fast that God can't keep up to me? Or is it that God is slow enough that I can't keep pace with Him? If He's really Lord of my life, then I should be going at His pace, not expecting Him to go at mine. So how do we slow down and learn to appreciate God's pace in our lives? Well, take those last 3 points that I told you and apply them to your life. We really need to slow down. We need to tune in. We need to listen up. And we need to remember that God's pace is very different than our pace. That's my Reset for Life word for today. God bless.